Here we go, AGT KTT23 with the terrible throttle design that we have here with the push button. Works great when it's warm and dry. Well, us northern folks use it for moving snow. You let it sit outside all night, water gets in there, moisture gets in there, freezes, now you got nothing. So, I got the airbox, carb cover, whatever you want to call it. Got that off, and we're just looking at how everything works. Here's our choke. Let me zoom her in a little bit. That pulls that front actuator, runs the choke right there on the side of your carburetor. Then this top guy, right now we're down, so we're at idle, and then when you pull it up, it pulls to turn the idle up. So I purchased one of these. This is generic. What it's listed as an excavator throttle controller on Amazon, eBay, don't matter. This is spins side to side. My thought is, if I keep it like this, moisture's not going to get in there and lock it. And if it does, you can get a screwdriver right here, because that's what holds your position. You can get a screwdriver in there if it ever gets locked up and pry that little tooth up so it'll move. Only problem is the shortest length you can get on these is 6 foot, and the end of the cable is different. So on the factory one, they just have, all right, this is their throttle cable. It's clamped there. I did loosen that nut. That was pinching against that to hold it. But this cable just runs through a pinch block that's held into the throttle arm, and they just have a long cable with nothing on it. I'm hoping, even though this is going to be long and we have to coil it, that maybe I can drill that pinch hole out and this pin will fit right in there. And then that's less that I need to modify. So, just wanted to get a video before I start cutting and hacking, and we'll follow up on it. I got the stock factory throttle out of this, and let's just go over how terrible of a design this is. Okay? So you got this, I don't even know what you want to call it, the actual assembly that mounts through that hole there, right? It sits against this, and then you got these 2 jam nuts and lock washers underneath it. It should be the other way around. You should have a jam on top, a jam at the bottom, and the lock washers in there. So they put it together wrong. Whatever. Next, you have how this works. You hit the button, and it lets it slide up and down. And then, in the bottom of it, there's just that little ball end, that little nipple, that slides into this throttle cable here, into that opening. So that'll sit on there. This outer cable then slides up, covers it, and then this retaining nut tightens and it holds this bottom against that. So inside of here, just think you have this spinning. See how it spins? And that's your fine adjust. But it's against this, and you can see that cable already frayed up. Now, I only got 20 hours on this machine. So, a little longer, this would have been shot, useless. It would have been stuck at whatever position it was at. And how this works, you just loosen it, that'll come off. Focus. See that ball? So what if I do this? Oh, it's yelling at me. There we go. See that little ball detent? When you push in on the top of this, that ball just drops down and gets rid of the friction between the inside of this. So, you can see that was moisture in here, even though I soaked this thing in WD and other penetrating fluids. Didn't matter. It got rusty in there. That got stuck in there. I'm assuming this cable froze in here. I went to twist it. This and this ball were frozen. That's why that's all frayed up on the end. The whole design's just terrible. Zoom back out. To get this out, right, you need to loosen this retaining nut all the way off. Then hold this piece from above the machine up there and loosen these down. Now, these were only just past hand tight. All I did was put a pair of channel locks on them and they went down. And there is not a lot of room up there to work. You can see it's that hole just past that switch there. So that's how that works. Now we're gonna see how we replace it with this guy. New throttle is installed. I thought about using this hole to put it in, but then I would have had to make an L bracket to utilize the two mounting bolts or holes that are already there. Then I figured over here is probably the best spot. The only thing I don't like is you only have half of the throttle. That's wide open. That's idle. But if we look this way, we're well inside of here from getting hit by anything. Even at full throttle, it's not higher than your joysticks, so I'm not worried about anything hitting those. Hooking it up underneath here, I really wanted to use this with the pin through the original hole, and the distance away was just too much. I would have had to make a new bracket over here, and it's not worth all the work. So what I did is I took that off, and with an angle grinder, I just cut the cable right at the end of the end of the cable where it goes into the crimp with the threads. That stayed pretty clean. I will tell you, if you got to use an angle grinder. If you try to use snips or side cutters, you're going to fray the hell out of this cable, and it's not going to be easy going through there. For routing of the cable, like I said, it's 6 foot long. That's the shortest you can get. It just comes down. I go through the side here. I did think about it. What if I got to take this side cover off? Well, I shouldn't, because you get to the battery from the top, or if you got to jump start it, you can use the back of that isolation switch. So I ran through there. It's looped right there, down low. It's above the pump, not in the way of me being able to grease it. Zip tied to that hydraulic line. It's underneath the filter. I'll still be able to get to the oil filter to change that without it being in the way. Come over here, snug underneath the bottom of the engine. Well, out of my way at least. My feet aren't gonna hit it. Zip tie on the oil drain. Up behind the filler neck. Remember, I moved my filler neck down one hole. In front of all your hydraulic lines, but out of the way of the choke. So the choke still has full range of movement. No difference there. On this end of the connector, I'm gonna have to snug this, but this guy is at the end of its thread, and then I just ran this one in finger tight and then tightened that down really good. And you can see I have slack in the cable. This is at full idle adjustment. So there's plenty of slack in there, and that actually gets taken up by the first bit of throw here. So right there is where it starts to move the cable. So from there to there, you got how many clicks of adjustment. So that's how I did that. Yeah, that was just the smoothest way I could find to run that cable. Now, if someone were to make these in a custom length, say probably 1.5 foot, you'd be able to put a 90-degree bracket on this, run the cable through that hole. It would have to come down, swoop to this side of the machine, and then swoop over so that the cable doesn't, bend too tight and kink up. But yeah, that's how I did it. Hopefully that works better than before. Just installed 2 contact heating pads on this unit here. I got one on the oil pump, and because that's round, I put 2 zip ties on it to keep it tight. And then I put another one down on the oil tank. Now, this has been in the garage. that I keep at 55, sometimes 60 for the last couple days, so it's acclimated. Right now, it's saying our oil temp is 21C. Let's see what we're looking at here, because I don't know where it's actually reading the oil temp. Let's go on this side. If I shoot right there, 58, and that's about halfway down behind the battery. Oh, let's see, end of the pump, 66, 78. Now, I did run this just now for about 45 seconds. Just enough time to pick the bucket up, spin it around, put it down. That way I had room. I got stuff piled up over there. I just needed room to get in here to work on it. So I'm going to plug these heaters in, give it a half hour, see what the temperature goes to. Now, I know this isn't too precise because temperature differential, it's only, we're trying to heat it up above ambient, and it's 55, but outside it's going to be in the teens, in the 20s, but also going to have wind blowing on it, sucking the heat away from it. So it's not totally accurate, but we're going to plug it in and see what happens. So I definitely lost track of time on this one. It's been about an hour since I put the heating pads on and turned them on. Put new lights on it in the meantime. So we turned this on. We were in the 20s before. Now we're at 18. Now this temperature probe is in the cooler. I don't know if it's that one or that one. One's for your caution light. The other one's for the temp sensor. So I just rewatched my video. I don't remember the numbers, but we shoot the tank over here. Now we're at 65. We're up a couple of degrees. But when we shoot the pump, oh, buddy. Oh, get the glare out of there. Try that again. There we go. About 120 right on the edge of it. Down there. 95, 98. Call that 100. Now that's what I want. What happens is I still have the Chinese hydraulic oil in this. I know I should have changed it, but I didn't. I figure I got a filter in it, the factory filter. I should be pretty safe from debris. So I don't know the temperature rating of this oil. I do know this engine will, because it's direct drive, that pump's always engaged, this engine will not turn over fast enough to start when it is below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I've tried to start it multiple different days, and 20 seems to be the number. 21, 22, it'll start with a little spritz of starting fluid in it. You know, you get up past 30, 35, it don't need the starting fluid, but below that, if the hydraulic fluid is reading 0 or colder, which this gauge and sensor do not read below 0. Once I hit 0, that's it. It will not start. But if I'm reading 1 or 2, which means the oil is still a little warm, it's still a little thinner, this thing, I've had it sit 10 hours, 12 hours, and it'll fire without starting fluid. So the whole purpose of all this is to keep that pump warm, so when I go to run that initial crank, that pump's not hard to turn over. That's what these are for. And I didn't say it before, these pads, I got 2 of them on Amazon for like 30 bucks. They're 150 watts a piece. So I got 300 watts, which comes out to 1/4 of an amp running into whatever extension cord I run. That's minuscule power. That don't matter. You can run that off a Christmas tree light extension cord if you need to. But yeah, that's what we did. Also put some amber lights on here. They're not flashing lights. These are solid lights, but amber because your eyes see shadows and reflections better in the snow with amber lights than they do with white LED. So I just had these sitting on the shelf. I put them on. The other reason I swapped them is this guy, when they installed it, they crushed it, and it was probably a half as bright or less than the other one. So again, these are just cheap Amazon lights that came on it. I don't care about cutting them up. These are the same thing, cheap Amazon lights, but they're amber and they're more of a floodlight than a spotlight, which is what you want because you're not going fast and you're working right in front of you. You want to be able to see everything. So yeah, that's how I did it. Those 2 heating pads, I think it's going to make a difference. Probably not a game changer, but it's going to help. Ran the cable out back, zip tied everything. I don't want anything loose because I got that belt turning. And they're just going to, once I unplug them, we'll do that now. They're just going to hang right there, out of harm's way. There's nothing there going to catch them.